Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome, everyone, to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. This is Steve Fielder coming at you one more time here on the DU Hunting Supply Network Hound podcast. We want to thank our friends out in Washington State with DU Hunting Supply, W, Buddy Woodbury, Jason Doobie, my producer Shannon, for making it possible for me to come to you each week on the network. And we have a terrific show for you today. This is our guest today is a gentleman that I first met about 3 years ago on a Freedom Hunters adventure out to the Navajo Nation in Arizona. Those of you that may be like I am and never had any idea what the Navajo Nation entailed would probably be interested to know a little bit about it. And I want to give you just a little bit of a geography lesson here, if you will, and before we introduce our guest. Actually, the Navajo Nation is a Native American territory that covers 17,544,500 acres. That's about 17.5 million acres. Think about that next time you think about getting a hunting lease. It occupies portions of northeastern Arizona, northwestern New Mexico, and then there's a smaller portion that's in southeastern Utah, all in the United States. And this is the largest land area that's retained by a Native American tribe in the United States. To kind of break that down to that 17.5 million acres, that's almost 28,000 square miles, and it's larger than 10 of our states. So let's just say it's a big place. And I went out there with the Freedom Hunters adventure with Marine Tanner Babb back when I was with Houndsman XP. And we were the guest of our host, who is a Native American. He is Navajo. He is Calvin Redhouse. And Calvin is in the house. How are you doing today, Calvin?
I'm doing great, Steve.
Man, it's great to hear your voice again. When I was out there hunting with you, I did get to talk to you a little bit around the, before we went hunting and when we got back. But the rest of the time, I was just trying to keep up with you. We nicknamed you Ricky Bobby out there with the way you drove that Ford Ranger around those ranch roads and reservation roads and all that. But we sure had a great time out there, and I really enjoyed meeting you. And I wanted to get you back on the podcast for a long time. And it's really good. It's really good. Let's tell the folks who Calvin Redhouse is, a little bit about your where you were born, a little bit about, just give us a bio, if you would, Calvin.
Yeah, no problem. Calvin Redhouse, my name. I was born and raised on the Navajo Reservation. Went to school here, elementary school, high school. Graduated from Chinle High School, and I did a little bit of college, and I got tired of homework, so I decided to join the Marine Corps. After 2 years of college, I just up and said, you know what, my wife and I talked, and she said, well, whatever you want to do, I'll support you. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to go sign some papers, and we left, and I did 10 and a half years with the Marine Corps. Stationed all over. We went from Yuma to Miramar, Camp Pendleton, 29 Palms to Japan, and then finally in 2014, after we pulled out from Afghanistan, and we pretty much, I told my wife, I'm okay. I've done my duty. Let's go home and see family. By this time, we had missed several funerals for grandparents and other family members, and we just can't be away from home no more. So we left, and we came home. But before we came home, I got out in April, and we were, where were we at? Oh, we were in, during Memorial Weekend. We got 4 days off from 4 days of liberty, and we decided to, said, wait, let's go take a drive up to Washington, D.C. and see the National Monument. And so that's what we did. And while we were out there, my brother-in-law, which is obviously my wife's brother, so he gave me a call, and he was like, hey, check this out. He sent me some pictures on my phone, and they had went out and were able to, put dogs down on 2 mountain lions, and they were able to harvest these 2 cats. And
Awesome.
he was telling me about it, and I was just like, you know what, that sounds like something I would want to do. And so I researched into it, found some local natives around there in North Carolina that coon hunt, and I had a good friend, one of my Marines. He's like, hey, I know this old man that lives, right off the north gate of right there in North Carolina, and he's in Camp Lejeune. He's like, I know an old man. He's got some walkers. He's like, let's go over there and we'll talk to him. And that's where I got my dogs from. I was like, oh, all right. I still didn't have a clue about, cold nose, hot nose, warm nose, pedigree. Didn't know anything about that. I just knew, hey, I thought everything was the same. A hound dog's a hound dog. They all have the same nose. And so I was like, you know what? He's got hound dog. The name hound dogs are in it, so let's go over there. So I pretty much walked into this thing, blind and green-footed, so to speak. So, and we went out there, and the old man was like talking to me, and he's like, you know what? I just don't sell my dogs to just anyone. I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what your plans are with these dogs if you do take them. And so every week after that first initial meeting for almost 3 weeks, we went out and did coon hunting with him.
Hey, that's something I didn't know that you had ever done, and I was going to ask you about that. I don't remember in our prior conversations whether we talked about coon hunting at all. And let me ask you this: do you have raccoons on the reservation?
We do, but it's very rare that you see them, and they kind of just stay near the lakes where the public trash cans are pretty much, just like any other town on that, around there. So right. There is a couple. So we went out and coon hunted, and the first couple times, I'm not gonna lie, I was chicken. We were walking, and next thing you know, I was, ankle deep in water. And he was like, yeah, you need to watch out for snakes and a couple alligators sometimes. And I looked at him, I was like, what? He's like, yeah, where the dogs are, they're about maybe 400 or 500 more yards, and they're treated with a coon. So, but we just need to be careful for, snakes out here. And I was just like, oh, no, that's it, I'm done. So I'll wait in the vehicle for you. You can, and that's what I did. I cut my losses. I said, nope, I'm done. I draw the line at reptiles. So.
Well, you've got some rattlesnakes out there, don't you, in Arizona?
Oh yeah, we do, but not very few in our area.
Okay.
I probably see 1 or 2 rattlesnakes a year, and those are small rattlesnakes that that were probably born within the season, and they just out venturing out and looking for new territory.
Well, I'm kind of with you there on the snakes. I moved to Florida back in 2013, I believe it is. And still, when I'm out there now, it has gotten better. My paranoia has gone away somewhat. But when I was out there hunting at night, one of the first hunts that I took here, got a dog bitten by a cottonmouth moccasin. Another trip encountered cottonmouth right near the tree where the dogs were treed. So, it had me, looking. The guys down here say if you don't look for them, you won't see them, and that's kind of the attitude they have. But, Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm not a real big snake fan, Calvin. So what happened then?
So he, he got to. I warmed up to him, and he was like, you know what? It sounds like you have a good plan for these dogs, and I would like to see if, my bloodline can be able to handle big game animals. So he's like, all right, let's. So he was able to set me up with two dogs, a male and a female. We picked them up when they were right around 9 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I packed up my family, my wife and my son. We flew my mother-in-law out to North Carolina, and asked her if she wanted to take a drive across the country back home with us, and she said yes. So we flew her out, and we loaded up the truck and put the dogs in the back in a kennel and hooked up the U-Haul trailer, and we traveled back across country from North Carolina down to Florida, straight down to Florida, and then all the way across on the bottom to from New Orleans to San Antonio and whatnot, because there was there was a bunch of snowstorms in the middle of the country, and we didn't want to drive through that, so we went down south and made our way back west.
Well, I did that one time in the opposite direction from L.A. all the way into Central Florida here, and I was traveling east on Interstate 10, and you were traveling west, obviously. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's great.
So I got back, and I introduced the puppies to my brother-in-law's pack. He had already started a pack of hound dogs, and essentially, he's the one that got me started on hound hunting. He introduced it to me, showed me everything he knew. I didn't start off, pretty much from scratch. He already had dogs that were, lined out and had already been on a couple of bears and mountain lions, and my dogs just got thrown in the mix, and I just tagged along whenever I could and learned and picked up here and there from my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And my brother. And that's pretty much how it came. And 2 years went by, and I got to know hound hunting a little bit better, understand what the dogs are doing, learn as much as I could from the internet and YouTube, from how to use the handhelds and how to read and figure out what was going on. And 2 years later, my brother-in-law was like, you know what? You can make money doing this. And I was like, how's that? And he told me, he was like, well, you can become a guide. You just need to get your guiding license through the Navajo Nation, and you can take people out hunting, and they can pay you to take them out hunting, and you can use that money to pay for dog food, vehicle expenses, maintenance, and whatnot. And I was like, all right, well, let me look into it. Another year went by, and that was my third year, and I finally be able to pull the trigger on it, and I got my guiding license, and I went from there.
Well, I see you as a guy that when you want to do something, you go after it, Calvin, and I saw that in the way that you worked your tail off for us out there on that Freedom Hunters adventure, which for those listeners that may not know, the Freedom Hunters organization takes veterans, active duty personnel, sometimes their families, the Gold Star families and so forth, on outdoor adventures. It might be fishing, it might be hunting, and of course we were happy to be able to be involved in that from a houndsman standpoint. And that first hunt was with you, my first experience, and then I was able to take a couple of hunts out in Virginia with my friend Heath Hyatt, bear hunts with veterans through Freedom Hunters. So it was just a great time, but I saw you in action out there. And I think, we talk about these dogs being naturals. Some of them that just naturally take to it, others that we have to, do some training, so to speak, with them. Not that all of them don't need some degree of training, but at any rate, I saw you as just being a natural hound guy. But the one thing that really stood out to me when I was out there with you is the fact that you are a hunter. You go at it. You are relentless in your pursuit. And I think that's the key to anybody that has hounds is they have to be a hunter first in order to have good hounds. Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, that's one that I would say that's about 100% accurate. If you don't have the drive and the ability to go out and hunt every day, then you're not going to make it in the hound hunting community. That's pretty much what I've seen from my experience anyway. If you don't put 100% into it, you're not going to get the type of quality dogs that you need to ensure that, that you can actually have fun and get it done. Not to say that chasing young pups up and down the mountain because they don't know what to do is not fun, but
we chased Daisy around one day there, I think, didn't we?
Yep. Daisy got free. Now Daisy's the lead dog. She went from chasing just about, trashing on just about everything to being the lead dog now. So now she's up in front. She's the one that I rely on. So
well, I want to talk.
A long way.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I do want to talk to you about your dogs in just a minute, but I will ask you about Nos. Is he still in the pack?
Yes, sir. He is still there. He's an old stubborn man. So it's come to the point where I got to feed him 3 times a day just to keep weight on him just because he's old. And I tried leaving him in the kennel and tried to turn him into a house dog and just will not have it. I get up in the morning, go down to the kennels and start loading up the dogs, and he's the first one in the dog box. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just go. I'll let the young dogs go and do their thing, and then after that, you'll walk with me to the tree. But nope, I made the mistake of leaving one of the doors slightly unlatched, and he was gone. I got back, and then I was walking after the dogs, and next thing you know, here comes Nas, opened up right behind me, passed by me, and kept on going, and he was at this. He got caught up with the rest of them like a mile away, and then helped them push past some dry spot. So I mean, he's got the drive and dedication, determined to keep on going. So I just don't know when I'm gonna, say, all right, that's it, buddy. You've done your job. Let's keep you here at the house more often. But I don't know if that's even gonna happen.
Well, he's a beautiful red tick hound, just a beautiful specimen. And I kind of enjoyed, when I know one time there in the snow, it may have been the last day that we were hunting. We were up on top there where we went over the mountain and trying to start that line. And I thought there for a while that Nos was going to be able to take it because he sure was working hard at it. But anyway, okay, this is a good opportunity for, I guess, if we jump ahead of the timeline here a little bit, maybe that's okay. But you hunt how many? Your pack of dogs are all hound, are they not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you did have, when I was out there, you did have some registered walkers in the pack, did you? Didn't you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The Daisy is the offspring of Star, and Star's one of the 2 walkers that the female that I brought back from North Carolina. She's registered.
Okay. Now, do you recall the background on Star?
I would have to look. I have not looked at her pedigree in forever. I can't even remember off the top of my head. So for me, I don't really look at pedigrees. I don't do too much with, paperwork as far as the dogs.
Right.
If their nose works, that's it. They stay with me and they can, come hunt with me as long as their nose works. Color, I'm not colorblind, so I don't see one specific pack of dogs as being my favorite. If they can help me out and help out the pack, accomplish the ultimate goal of ensuring that we can get that animal in the tree, hey, I'm all for it. So, but yeah, Star is registered. I would have to look back at her pedigree in order to look at that.
Well, I think you're typical of many of the Western houndsmen, Calvin, that traditionally through the years have hunted what we would call crossbred or At one time in the coonhound game, we called them grade dogs. But at any rate, they're full hound, but they're just not bred to a specific standard or within a specific breed. Wouldn't that be pretty fair?
Yeah. So I've got one full-blooded Walker, 4 full-blooded blue ticks, and the rest are all completely mixed with black and tan, blue ticks, Walker, and I just got some 2 puppies from Amarillo, Texas this past weekend, and they're Walker plot mixes. So so we're about to see what happens with that bunch here. They are right around 12 weeks now, so they're yapping at the house. My wife's like, "Oh, your 2 babies are crying again." So,
well, real quickly, let's interject. I met your wife. What a lovely lady. You have 2 children, I believe, correct?
yes, sir. My son, who is 15, and my daughter just turned 6 the beginning of this month.
Right. So she was only 3 when we were out there then. Wow.
Yeah.
What a doll. Well, that's great. You do have a beautiful family, and I appreciate it so much being able to be out that way and to learn a lot of things that I didn't know before, especially about your culture and so forth. And it's just a fascinating place. But you've got I guess primarily, well, let's see. There's so many things I want to talk to you about. Now, we got on the dogs. Let's talk about the dogs just a minute more, and then I have some other questions for you. Right now, you say the Daisy dog is leading your pack of dogs?
Yeah, she's about 3 years old right now. You know, Nosh is about 12, and he's still pushing one to get out there. Star is right around about 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Rico is about 8 or 9 right now. And then the rest all fall into line between 2 years and younger. So
right now, you had some blue tick puppies, I believe, blue tick colored puppies when we were there about 3 years ago. The puppies you had then, what have they done? Do you remember which ones?
Yeah, they came around and they were doing good. They had lots of grit, and those were the ones that came from Gary Robinson. He was able to, hook me up with those puppies, and they came around. And I do a lot of work with Fish and Wildlife because my brother, I was telling you, my brother-in-law works for Fish and Wildlife. Right. He's actually a game warden, and so the dogs work year-round, no matter if it is bear season, lion season, hunting season, or guiding season. They work year-round. If the animal is not in season, the dogs are still working because of all the depredation calls that the Fish and Wildlife get. And my brother-in-law will use the dogs now to go do all these depredation calls. And we end up having, every now and then, I'd probably say we lose about 1 to 2 dogs during these depredation calls, because these depredation calls with bears are the mean, big, gnarly boars that just have been around houses, people, and dogs to where they don't care, and they're just horrible. They put up a fight.
Well, I can see that, and that's a little bit different, I think. In the way, certainly, that we used to do it back in West Virginia, because on these depredation calls, the game department would call the hunters to go out and answer the call on those nuisance bear and so forth. Of course, we didn't have mountain lions out there, but so the department itself handles those calls for you, right?
Yeah. Sometimes, depending on the location of the call, I'll volunteer to go in, because I know, it's easier for me to be able to track the dogs and then contact my brother-in-law and be like, hey, I'm going to walk across, to this road with the dogs. Come pick me up on that side, and we kind of work as a team to minimize the amount of travel for myself and the dog. So either that, or the dogs will go off the side into a canyon or down the side of the mountain, and I'll tell, my brother-in-law, meet me at the bottom or meet me on the other side of the canyon, and teach us to get up on that side. And that's how we kind of work out together and figure this out.
And folks, when he's talking about this side of the canyon, that side of the canyon, no, that's not your average walk in the park. You cover a lot of ground on one of those hunts. You were talking about that, being able to get out on these depredation calls, and I immediately thought, well, what a great way to train your pups. But then I'm thinking also what you said about a lot of these calls are on those pretty rank animals that have one thing in mind, and it's probably to kill and destroy. So I guess that's kind of a toss-up. Do you take young dogs out on these depredation calls?
I used to take young dogs out, and then I've had a couple experiences where the bear is so mean that it just put it just scares the dog away, and after that dog is not, doesn't like to chase bears after that. So I kind of learned my lesson. So I stopped taking younger, inexperienced dogs out on these calls because I just didn't want them experience, a charging bear at them the entire time, to the point where they, think that, hey, every bear charges and every bear is just out to kill me. So I usually don't try not to take him unless they've seen bears firsthand, about 2 or 3 times before I actually take him out on a depredation call.
Well, I think that's definitely a good piece of advice there for anybody that's listening. It doesn't matter whether you're a bear hunter, and I know that, having been in the plot breed for all the years that I have, and there's all this talk about grit and how much the dog will get in there and mix it up with the bear. I've seen and heard the stories for years of young dogs that were, actually ruined by a bad bear because they were too young to, they simply got scared. It's like we were as kids, we might have been afraid of the dark. As we get to be adults, we're no longer afraid. And that applies to the coon hunters too. I've seen coon hunters let puppies get exposed to a wild raccoon in a fight situation, that actually set the dog back a lot. So we have a lot of listeners, Calvin, that are fairly new hunters or, inexperienced. They might be young, they might be older, but they're fairly new to the sport. So I like to try to do as much teaching as we can on these podcasts to help people, not to try to illustrate that I know or our guest knows more than they do, but we do like to help, and I think that's a good lesson right there for sure. Well, beyond Daisy, and who's the up and coming star in the pack right now?
The up and coming stars. So, I've got a 2-year-old right now. His name is Magman, and he's coming along. He's working. He's been to about 9 or 10 lions this season, so he's making his way up among the ranks. And then I had this past, September, I had a litter of pups, and every one of the pups except for one got parvo and weren't able to make it through. So I've only got one pup out of there, and he is shown great potential. He goes, doesn't stop. He crawled out of the dog box a couple of times and then got into the middle of the race and kept on going. Dogs left him behind about maybe 800 yards. He stopped opening. His name is Scrappy. And so he stopped opening, and I was watching him on the handheld to see what he would do, if he would backtrack to me or if he would keep going. And next thing you know, the dog's open again, and he just figured out which way the sound was going and went straight to them.
Oh, there you go.
And the dogs had bait up a lion down in down on the canyon ledge, and his handheld disappeared, and the question mark came up. I was like, okay, well, hopefully he's there, or he just went into a different draw, and I lost signal with him. But where I lost signal with him is down towards where the rest of the dogs are, so he's got to be there. So we ended up going in there, and sure enough, they had that lion, that Tom bait up alongside the canyon, the rock wall, and sure enough, they were within 2 feet of that lion, and Scrappy was right in the middle of the mix, staying right down to that lion, just opening up on that lion. So I was like, all right, well, I think he might make it, and he is. Let's see, I think he's 8 months right now.
Wow, that's awesome. What describe him? What's he look like? What breed is he?
He is a blue tick. He is. What did they say? The father is from Bill Anderson line, I think it was, if I remember correctly.
Dave Anderson up in Montana?
No. It's Bill Anderson. It's a different guy.
Okay.
Locally from around this region.
Okay.
So he looks to be like a good dog, so I might make that cross again just because of how he came out. I mean, there's no telling.
Sure.
He might have been the only one out of the pack that would have been able to do what he's doing, or the entire batch, that litter was capable of doing the same thing he was, and just had the unfortunate accident of of not being able to get past parvo. So
yeah,
so
that's
I'm gonna make that cross again.
Yeah, sounds like something I would do. Well, that's the frustrating part when you have a litter that, you don't get to see them all grow up, so you really don't know. And we've always said, I want a pup that's from an entire litter of good dogs, not just the outstanding pup from an otherwise mediocre litter, as far as for using for future breeding purposes. So, but anyway, this way we have no way of knowing. So I'm sure if he's that good, you'll probably find a mate for him at some point down the line if he continues to progress like he did or is doing. There's 2 things I want to ask you. Calvin, I saw a picture on Facebook that really intrigued me, a picture of a lion on the side of a cliff. What is that, the story that you were telling about Scrappy?
Yes, sir. That is the exact same story. You can't see the dogs in that picture because they're lower, maybe about 2 feet, because right where I took that picture from, there's a little hill that goes up, and then it drops back down, and then that cat is sitting higher. Well, the dogs are in that little ditch or ravine right below the lion.
I see. That was a fantastic picture. Where were the dogs in that in relation to the lion? They were down at the foot of the cliff or up above?
Yeah, they were at the foot of that lion. That lion was right above them.
I see. That's pretty awesome. Well, you've always impressed me with the pictures and the video and so forth that you get. You mentioned Gary Robertson of Menard, Texas, and our listeners, if you don't know Gary, he's the guy that produces the Carnivore TV show on the Pursuit Network. I guess that's where they are still. How did you and Gary get together, and how'd you get into the video side of things?
So I met Gary through my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law we went out hunting and looking for elk, and we ran across Gary in this remote area, part of the Navajo Nation, and he was trailing a mountain lion. Him and his son Steve were out filming and trailing a mountain lion, and I got to meet Gary. We really didn't talk that time because they were trying to get to their dogs, and so we let them. We just let them be and do their own thing on that side, and we went on to go scout for elk. A couple of days later, they gave my brother-in-law a call and said, "Hey, we're going to go, coyote call. You guys want to come tag along and join us?" And so we said, "Yeah." My brother-in-law was like, "Yeah, we'll be out there, and I'll bring, my brother-in-law was like, I'll bring my brother-in-law and we'll meet you out there. So during a couple of sets, we were able to talk, and he found out that I like to film and make videos, and he asked me, he's like, well, do you have a job? And this was at the point where I was 2 years out of the Marine Corps. I still didn't have a job because finding a job in our area is very scarce because there's not too much employment. So that entire first 2 years after I got the Marine Corps, we kind of just lived off our savings. And he offered me a job to either one, go back to Texas and help the local ranchers and be a ranch hand. And then the other one he offered me, he goes, well, or you can be my cameraman and film all these hunts, and we'll make you the camera guy for us. And so I took that offer, and I told him, I was like, yep, all right, well, I can do that. I can film all the hunts for you. So I became the cameraman for them. So all my hunts with clients, I filmed the hunt, I get the entire story, and then I had them sign a media release stating that I can use all the pictures and videos that we take during their hunt for social media and the national TV. So, and that's how we're able to use it. And,
well, that's awesome.
That's what I do for them.
Yeah. Well, that's terrific. That really, Gary's a great guy, and I met him through social media and through the project, the Freedom Hunters project that we did. What about a good line hunting story from this? Did you have any really interesting hunts this last season? I should ask you right here, are you still hunting, or is the season over now?
This season is still open. It closes all the way for mountain lions on June 31st.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Bobcats is year-round. Spring bear hunt should be coming up here real soon.
I got you. So that's the 3 species that you hunt, right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a particularly interesting hunt besides the one that you treed on the cliff with Scrappy and company?
The only other hunt that comes to mind at this moment is I believe this is one of the ones that I told you. I had a client. He was an older gentleman from Missouri, and we went out. It was the 4th day of our hunt, and we put down on an average lion, and Nos and Rico were the only 2 that were out trailing. And next thing you know, they came up treed, and so we said, I told them that we'll get as close as we can, and it was 3/4 of a mile away. We had 2 hours left before the sunset, and legal shooting hours is 30 minutes after sunset and 30 minutes before sunrise. And so I told them, I said, we have 2 hours to get to there, judge the cat, and at least shoot it. And then we can take our time skin it out, or we just leave the animal, and then we come back the next day and skin it out. And so there was about maybe 1.5 feet of snow in the low country. And we did. We started walking, and we started walking when the temperatures. The temperatures were in the teens, and by the time we got there and decided to shoot the cat was in this small juniper tree, no higher. I think the highest limb was maybe about 8 feet high. Was the highest limb, but that lion was right at the top. Nasa was halfway up the tree, and Rico was right behind him, maybe about 1/4 of the way up the tree. And my shooter had a .357 Magnum that was single shot. You had to manually reload it after every shot. And I told him, I was like, after you shoot, you automatically just start reloading. No matter what, just automatically start reloading. He's like, okay. So he said, I can't see it. I was like, well, do you see Nos? Nos is right there. And we were about maybe 3 feet from that tree. So we were right underneath of that lion. And there was limbs. This was a really thick tree. And he's like, yeah, I see Nos. I was like, well, go up about 1 foot. You'll start to see the lion. And sure enough, he's like, oh, okay, now I see it. I was like, yeah, right there. Shoot him. So he's like, all right. So he shoots, and I thought the mountain lion would jump out of the tree away from us, but that didn't happen. That cat jumped back towards us, landed a foot from where we were standing. I pushed the shooter out of the way, and that cat took off back down the hillside from us and didn't make it 80 yards. And it was just, and I was able, and me being the cameraman for Carnivore TV, I didn't stop filming. So if you go on to, not last season, but the season before, if you go on to Pursuit Up is an app that you can use, a free app that you can use to watch Carnivore TV's episodes, and it's on there. You can watch that episode.
So that's 2 years ago. That would be 2020 or 2021? Yeah, 2020.
I think it was the 2019-2020 season.
Okay. There you go, folks. Carnivore TV. It's on the Pursuit app on your phone or your computer. And do you remember the title of that show?
Yeah, that show was Navajo Houndsman Part 2.
All right, there you go, folks. You want to meet Calvin Redhouse and see these hounds we've been talking about and see some apparently incredible action. I can't wait to see that one myself. I'm going to go there as soon as we're through recording, Calvin. Well, okay, so this year, I mean, as a rule, trailing conditions are pretty tough out there, right? Most of your cats are your lion hunts, are they on dry ground or are they on snow, or is there a mixture of both?
It's a mixture of both. When I do have a client, I call them out during the snowstorms. So when there's a big snowstorm coming in, I'll give them a week's call in advance notice and let them know, hey, the snowstorm is hitting on this day. We're going to start hunting the day after. That's just to ensure that we improve our chances to get that hunter tagged out. I mean, there's nothing worse than not giving, your client, a big client, all the biggest opportunity you can to ensure that they can, put their tag on their animal.
Well,
so
sure.
That's how I run my services when I have clients.
Okay,
but
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But when it's just myself, like right now, all my clients are done with. They're tagged out. They're gone back to where they're from, and right now it's just me. So me and the dog. So I'll saddle up the mules and I'll leave from right there in the back of my house and just go straight up into the mountains, trailing after the dogs on the mules.
Okay, now that I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that when I was out there hunting with you, you did not use the mules. In fact, I don't think you had any mules when I was there 3 years ago, did you?
No, I got the mules a year ago now.
Yeah, let's hear that story.
Yeah, so I had some friends come down from Utah, and they brought mules down. And they got me hooked, to be honest with you. They left their mules at my house, and then the next morning they came back. We loaded up the mules, and we went to the canyon, and we put down the dogs, and we rode after the dogs on mules, and we must have trailed maybe about 8 or 9 miles along that canyon edge, and it was just being able to see so much more country on a mule's back, and be able to trust that mule, and the sheer footedness of a mule versus a horse is just remarkable. I mean, they say that a mule's eyes are further apart off to the side of the head, so a mule can see its back hoof, so it sees where its back hoof is going, so he has better footing while walking on the stuff, and they have more muscle. They get their muscles from the donkey.
Yeah, the hybrid. Yeah, that hybrid vigor we talk about in breeding dogs, the crossing, and they are a hybrid. A mule can't reproduce itself, so
yes, sir.
But Yeah, I noticed that, and it really didn't take you all that long to become a mule skinner. Let's say, seemed like you're a pretty quick study.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'll give credit where credit's due, and I watched a lot of YouTube on how to train mules. I've talked to Brett Vaughn
Oh yeah,
and of course he works with W as well. He has his own podcast with W, born
right,
100 years too late. And
right.
I've talked to him. I've picked his brain left and right. And of course, my friends that have mules up in Utah, I've picked their brains left and right as well. And anybody that will listen to me about my complaints or give me tips on how to be a better mulesman, houndsman, I'm all for it. I mean, if you ain't learning, you just ain't gonna get any better if you
You're
ain't
not
learning every
growing,
day.
are you? Now you mentioned.
No,
Did
sir.
you say the Hatfields in Utah? What did you say
Oh,
about the hunters in Utah? What name?
oh, Mike Daly.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I
that's where.
misunderstood you. I thought you said the name Hatfield, and
Oh no.
that piqued my interest because that's my mother's name. Okay, that's my bad there. Well, yeah, I
Oh
know
yeah.
that you and as you were talking there, at first I immediately thought of Brett Vaughn and his YouTube series, Born 100 Years Too Late, as you said. Really interesting stuff. And the first coon hunt that I ever went on as a kid, and I've talked about it many times, I was about 3 years old with my dad on my grandfather's mule in Tennessee. So, and I have hunted coons on mules. I hunted in Michigan some. I hunted in Texas on mule, and then I did hunt horseback in New Mexico with some of the hunters out there. So yeah, I get it. It's a lot of fun, but at the same time, if you're not used to riding, you can be pretty sore, can't you?
Oh yeah. The first 2 days of me riding, I was so excited. Well, I had to train the mules up first, and then after I was able to build up enough confidence to take them out riding and with the dogs. Um, the first 2 days, the first day I was fine. We went out and we rode for about maybe 6 hours straight. After that, the second and third day, man, I was so sore. I was walking around bow-legged, and my wife was making fun of me. But now it's fine now to where I
Yeah.
can get up and go, and it doesn't bug me one bit.
Okay, now, is there a special outfitter that you use to outfit your mules for hunting and all? Or are there certain places that carry special needs for, or is it just the same? I mean, do you just basically the rigging and all the tack, I should say?
Okay. All right. Yeah. So it all varies, but the main thing you want, because mules and horses have different bone structures and they walk differently. A mule's front shoulders work like a piston. They go vertical, up and down. A shoulder of a horse kind of works in a circular, horizontal, oval motion to where it doesn't really bug them if the saddle is sitting really forward up above the shoulders. But a mule, if you put that saddle up above where their shoulders were, because their shoulders go up and down like a piston, their shoulders will rub straight into the the saddle,
I got
and
you.
they will get saddle sore really bad. And so the tack that they use, they're specially made to have a bigger pitch to ensure that the saddle is not rubbing on the
I
mule.
got you.
They call them mule bars versus quarter horse bars. That's just the foundation of the saddle. And of course, a horse's back is more swayed
Yes.
um, than a mule's. A mule's back is just pretty much straight across
Right.
in a straight line. So the mule's got more of a flatter back, so the saddle is not concave as much when you're in it. It's totally built different. And then because the mule's back is completely straight, you got to have, if you're going up and down hills and steep inclines and declines, you need to have a strap that will go back either around the rear end, which they call a britchin,
Right.
it goes around the rear end to keep the saddle from sliding forward, or I think it's called a grouper, where it attaches and it goes around the tail of the mule to keep it from going forward. But from my research and what I've learned, if you do a lot of vertical and a lot of vertical or steep
Inclines.
declines,
Mm-hmm.
steep declines, then a groupler is not the perfect one. You eventually will hurt that mule's back because that groupler pulls on the rear, the base of the tail. So if you go down a steep part of the heel and that saddle really slides forward, you can really hurt that mule's back because you're compressing the spine of that mule, and you're going to pinch nerves, give your mule all kinds of problems. So if you're doing a lot of, up and down motions, it's called the grouper would be, not the britchin would be best because that runs around the hind end of the mule to keep it from sliding forward. And of course, you've got the breast collar, which everybody who knows anything about horses or mules, a breast collar just keeps the mule or the saddle from riding towards the rear end of the animal. So, and there's variations of tack out there that you can use. There's certain saddles that saddle makers use. As long as it kind of has mule bars, you can work and you can get one that will fit your animal. As far as the tack that I use to put on the saddle, I like to use what they call mountain ridge gear. It's a U.S. Made company out of Peyton, Colorado. He specifically does tack for mules. He does a lot of donkeys and tacks for those animals. So I kind of go through him if I need if I need stuff to haul out animals and everything. So that's who I go through for tack.
I got you. Well, that's all very interesting stuff, and something that I have heard these terms about the breeching and britching and so forth and all, but never really being a horse person or a mule person. I appreciate all that because we try to give a smorgasbord of information on this podcast, and here you come, Calvin, with a whole lot of good info for anybody that wants to ride a mule on a coon hunt, a bear hunt, or whatever. And it's just a really interesting kind of an organic, as we say, way to hunt, I think. Do it like they did it years ago,
Yes, sir. I mean, getting back to the roots, pretty much the ultimate goal, the way Ben, Lilly, and all of them did it,
Yeah.
I mean, now I consider myself cheating by putting GPS collars on dogs, but, from time to time it's come to the point where now I know what the dogs sound like, now I know what the dogs are doing just by listening to them. But, eventually I end up looking at the handheld. I try to do a little bit less looking at the handheld and more trying to listen to what the dogs are doing and saying and trying to figure it out that way. But, technology, use it to your advantage. So.
Well, of course, and that's the gospel that we're trying to teach on this podcast, that learn that dog, learn every sound that he makes, keep the Garmin in your pocket. If you need it to know, the dog is out of pocket, lost, or near a roadway or something, absolutely use it. But for the most part of the hunt, keep that screen in your pocket, listen to your dog, and you'll learn a whole lot more about being a good hounds person than you will with your nose in that screen. And it's not easy, with this age we live in today. We start them from the time they're little now, with their own cell phone and so forth. So, but well, hey, how would you rate the hunting conditions this winter and all compared to other years. Did you have a pretty good year or what?
It was a little bit harder to find cats this year than it was the previous years. And at the beginning of the season, we had this huge windy snowstorm that it was windy. I think we reached a temperature high, wind speeds for this area. And I think what happened was it pushed a lot of the cats up and over the mountain to the other side to where
Mhm.
the mountain was blocking majority of the wind. So
Right.
we had to actually drive up and over the mountain to the side that we were hunting when you were out here around there majority of the time, because the sides that I used to find all the cats, they just weren't there. All the deer were there, but the lions weren't. Or there were
Hmm.
lions there. They were small. They were smaller lions, and
I see. Well, normally you'd
but
find the lions where the deer herds are, though, would you not? Normally.
yeah, a mountain lion's main diet is probably around 80% mountain mule deer here,
Right.
and then you throw in elk. But don't get me wrong, mountain lions are opportunistic animals. If they get a chance to eat a skunk, they'll eat a skunk if they need.
Well, that's interesting because something it was popped up on social media the other day and asked what animals eat skunks, and I think do you think a bobcat will eat a skunk?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think 5 years ago, he was one of my very first clients. I think his name was Kanan Matthews, and he was from Oklahoma. We went out and we found this cat track and we put down on it, and he was so excited. He was like, "Man, I want to eat this meat. I want to, taste what a mountain lion tastes like." I was like, "All right, well, we'll pack out this cat and we'll make sure that we, cut and take a lot of this meat out." So for those of you listening, I'm sorry. Let me give you a little story, a little background story here. So the Navajo Nation, you're not required to pack out the meat for bear and mountain lions, because in our traditions, we don't hunt mountain lions or bears, and we don't eat mountain lions or bears. Because of that, the Navajo Nation doesn't require non-Navajos to, pack out the meat for mountain lions and bears. So this client decided, hey, I want to try mountain lion meat. So let's get this done. So that's what we did. We were able to get the cat, and as we started skinning out, as we walked up to it, I smelled skunk, and I was like, oh man, there's a skunk somewhere around here. And we kept on going, and we got closer. I was like, oh man, this cat must have got sprayed by a skunk. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we'll just, and he's like, oh, all right, well, we'll still take the meat. But as we started gutting it, skinning it, the scent, the smell of skunk just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And then I was just like, oh man, no way. There's no way. Did this cat just eat a skunk? And we got done skinning it, and before I started cutting the meat up, I took a smell of the meat, and the meat just reeked of skunk. And so I opened up the gut, and sure enough, a skunk fell out of the mountain lion.
Oh my goodness!
And
Surprise!
And I just told him, I was like, yeah, this is not going to happen. I mean, you can have the meat, but
No.
But it's totally up to you. Your meat's gonna smell like skunk. I mean, it's already seasoned. Is what I was teasing him.
Right. Well, do you think that your population being down just a little bit, or maybe just the fact that the cats moved out to seek shelter from the weather?
No, the population is still the same. It's still higher than ever, to be honest with you. I mean, we trailed and treed 3 different cats in one location in about maybe a good 10-mile stretch. We've treed 3 toms in a 10-mile stretch in a 10 square miles.
Wow.
And that's about how it is for around here. And the population is pretty good. And we've cut, I don't know, I think every time we went out with a client, we would cut at least 2 or 3 females with kittens. So we have a healthy population of cats.
Well, that's great. That's great. And it's so good to be able to talk to you, Calvin, and to see that you're still pursuing, uh, your exploits. We definitely thank you for your service, and I can personally vouch for anyone out there that's interested in booking a mountain lion hunt. I didn't hunt with your dogs on bear. I do. We did get a nice bobcat while we were out there, so I can vouch for you as a professional guide that will work hard, and you've definitely got the territory, and you've got the lion population. So we'll try to post a link to your website in the show notes for this episode, and I'll also post it on Facebook, so that anybody that's interested in booking a lion hunt or a bear hunt with you can do so. Now, you call your guide agency Res Hounds, is that right?
Yeah, exactly like that. REZHOUNDS, and it's not really the website. It's just social media through Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
That's kind of what I run it underneath of.
Yeah, and you got some great looking merch out there. In fact, when you came out with your new hoodie, like I need a hoodie, like a hole in the head, but I had to have one. They're really neat. They're great, and I got that hat I wear all the time, and I get a lot of comments about that. Your logo, it's pretty neat. Did you design that logo yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I came back, I did 2 years of college, and then gave college up. But when I was there, I did some computer design and computer graphics, and I came up with that logo, and that's been a staple of what I do around here. So.
Well, it's such a beautiful part of the world. It's such I would urge anybody that has the opportunity or traveling in the Southwest to go and visit the Navajo Nation, because the people are warm. The scenery is phenomenal. What is that one place that we could see from ever is like Ship Rock or something like that?
Yeah, you got Shiprock, which is in a lot of Hollywood movies, and then you got Monument Valley, of course, where Forrest Gump, did that long stretch of road, and then he's like, oh, I think I'm done running. So that's over there. You got the Grand Canyon that's just right on the west side of the reservation. You've got Canyon de Chelly, which is kind of where you guys stayed.
Yeah, that was awesome.
In my opinion, was more beautiful. It's more beautiful than the Grand Canyon. So.
It is. It's gorgeous, and it's right there near where we stayed. What was the name of that inn or hotel there that we stayed?
It was Thunderbird Lodge is where you guys stayed.
Right. Recommend it to anyone out there listening. If you want a unique vacation spot, you're going through the Southwest, be sure to see these areas. Well, Calvin, it's just great to be able to touch base with you again. We've been at this about an hour and 5 minutes. I told you we'd do an hour, and I know you have things to do. Are you? You say now you're at this time of year you're mainly just hunting with yourself or by yourself?
Yeah. All the clients are done with. Now it's just by myself and taking the dogs out and teaching these young pups on what needs to happen. So right now, just back to training.
Well, I want to get back with you and have you on again, and we'll talk about how you go about training a lion dog and a bear dog and all. Now, what, again, are those seasons? If somebody wanted to book a hunt with you for next year, what would they do?
Okay, so we got, for bear season, we got 2 seasons. We got the spring bear season, which is the middle of April to the middle of May. So it's about 3.5 weeks long, which is our spring bear season. And then our mountain lion season runs from October 1st all the way to June 31st. And then our fall bear season it ends on October 15th, and it starts in September 1st. So it's like 2.5 months is our fall bear season. And so those are the seasons for hunting those animals.
Okay.
The bear season, the bear tags are all lottery draw tags. So you put in and hopefully cross your fingers and you draw one. But mountain lions, obviously, like you know, are all over the counter. So as soon as October 1st hits, you can put in your application and get your mountain lion tag.
Awesome. And a great opportunity for anybody that loves the outdoors and wants to take a big game trophy over hounds. I don't think you could find a better place. Calvin, it's been great to be with you today. I don't get to talk to you enough, and that's my fault, I'm sure. But we'll be in touch, and we'll have you back on the show. Is there anything that I should have talked about with you that we didn't talk about?
No, I think we pretty much hit the general basis of what we originally discussed, just to get some general information to the public and try to educate people. So I think we got everything handled, I believe.
Well, I think so too, and it's great to have you on. And I just hope that there's another hunt out there in my future. I sure would like to do that, and maybe you could put me on one of those mules, because I don't I don't think I want to walk over very much of that 17.5 million acres. But
the invite's there. You want to come out? We just got to get you a tag, and I'll put you on one of the older mules that
you go.
The kids on, so the kids. That mule takes care of the kids, so you'll be all right.
I got to ask you one thing. 3 years ago, when I was out there, a longtime friend from Michigan, Mel Gunsviller, was out there. He and his wife Rhonda were hunting. Did they come back out?
This time they didn't come out this season because of COVID. Mel's mother-in-law contracted COVID, so they didn't want to, just leave her there. So they decided to stay there and not come out this season. But I've got some of their gear here. They usually leave gear here with me. That way they don't have to haul it back and forth from Minnesota. So all their gear, some of their gear is still here that they left. So they plan on coming back out this coming season.
Well, that's good. They're great folks. Mel and I served on the board of the Michigan Bear Hunters together back several years ago. Well, once again, Calvin Redhouse, great to talk to you. We're going to bring on now, after we kind of hang up here, Calvin, I've been doing a segment on my podcast with my friend Fred Moran in Pennsylvania that's 85 years old, still coon hunts 4 or 5 nights a week, and has some great stories. So we're going to go to Fred Moran. Calvin will tell you goodbye out there in the Navajo Nation, and I hope you have a great year, buddy.
You too. You take care.
Well, folks, it's that time that we look forward to every week when we have our good friend Fred Moran over in the hills of Pennsylvania check in with us. How are you today, Fred? Feeling good?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Feeling real good.
Well, what's going on today? Tell us something.
Well, I wanted to ask you about what you thought of this. Years ago, we didn't have a coon club around here anywhere close. We had the one in Blairsville, but that was about the closest one. That's 50 miles from me. Anyhow, we had a guy offer us a building to use for his coon club. It was nothing but a square wooden shack out in the middle of a field, and the only thing it had in it was a light bulb, and a sign above the door says Camp Ozark. But it became our coon club for a good 2 or 3 years, and we put on the Pennsylvania State Championship out of it, and so forth, and got a good crowd. No record crowd, but got a good crowd. And it was in a black community. Probably the population there is 15,000 today, and it's probably 8,000 black. And there was a lot of coon hunters that was black in that. Uh, Most of them are gone now. They're too old now, but there's some nice guys in there. And we never had a problem of any type with it. And them guys are good for playing tricks on one another. You think us whiteys are bad. Wait till you get together with them. And they argue who got the best dog all the time. You can't beat my dog. We had one old black guy. His name was Ed Saunders. Real nice guy. Do anything in the world for you. Had an old black dog named Joe. He won a darn near every great hunt they had. Joe was tough. And I had a black buddy that used to hunt with me all the time. You wouldn't even know him by his right name, but everybody called him Cotton Powell. He had some money. He owned 2 coal mines and a bar. And when I'd go to Wyoming every year, I'd go out there, deer, antelope, elk hunting, and so forth. I went there for about 15 years, and till I got shot. Then that's a different story. And anyhow, Cotton always used to keep my dogs while I was gone and take them up his place. And there was some white guy, Frank, always says his dog's better than Magic in that. I said, good. He said, can I take him and have a challenge hunt between ourselves? I said, I don't care what you do. Treat him like he's yours. When I come back from Wyoming, he told me, he says, Fred, guess what? I got beat by Frank's dog. All the guys know about it. And they just had a challenge hunt, and all the members of the club went along. And old Frank's dog beat. I never hunted with Frank's dog. I know it was some sort of black dog, that's all. But that about broke Cotton's heart. Oh, Magic was his dog. There ain't another dog like it, but he got beat that night they went hunting. Frank's dog treated coon. Magic didn't get no part of it or something. I don't remember all the details. But and we used to put on water races on Sundays. We had a big pond, and the farmer let us do anything we wanted. And we didn't have no pulley or anything like the good guys have today. One guy would be rowing a boat. Packy was there. Packy, as you know, has a big mouth. We didn't need a microphone. He could announce anything. And Packy would be the announcer, would have guys there, 2 rowing the boat, and the other one had the rope and pull the coon up the tree and that. We had some big crowds on Sunday. They put it in the newspaper. They got a hold of it and somehow published it in the newspaper. It was a water race open to the public. Them women that played bingo came out to our water race, and we'd bet on the dogs. We had a crowd of 200-300 people, most of them women, betting on the dogs on a Sunday. That was something to see. Laugh, and there was an old moonshiner used to come to and he didn't understand the rules about the betting. And he'd buy the whole cast instead of buying 1 or 2. I said, his name was, and they called him Cat. I said, Cat, you can't win no money. You're winning your old money back, and you're losing some. And he said, that's all right. I buy them all. Oh, we had some times on that. And them women would go nuts. They'd start arguing. That's my dog, that red dog. Not yours is a blue one. And oh, they were good old days back then. And
well, I don't think our listeners, a lot of them, especially if they're fairly new to the sport, remember just what a big deal it was to have a coon hound event at a local club on a Saturday where did you had these activities, treeing contest, water race, maybe a field trial, the Calcutta that you're talking about there, placing the dogs, in the heats and then the finals and the grand finals and all that entailed. And, that's really how I got my start in this sport, working as a secretary in my local club when I was just a teenage kid in high school, and it was a big thing. A coonhound event was an all-day affair, wasn't it?
Just about.
Yeah. Well, that's a great story, Fred, and it's always good to hear from you. Have you been hunting any lately?
Last night, I don't go on Sundays. It's rare, and I won't go Sunday, but I go just about every time it's dark.
Well, that's the best time to go, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, Fred, it's great to hear from you again, and we'll be checking back in with you next week right here on the Gone to the Dogs podcast with Fred Moran, the Red Bone Man. Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
All right.